Stephen Strange breaks the entire universe in Spider-Man No Way Home. Isn't this guy supposed to be a doctor? We're going mad trying to figure out what exactly he did in this movie.
Could you just stop talking to me?
The first surprise cameo fans receive in No Way Home is courtesy of Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. For MCU fans who didn't tune into Netflix's Marvel series before the introduction of Disney+, this may not seem like a big deal. However, this opens up a world of possibilities to seriously expand Phase 4 of the MCU. The cameo itself is a somewhat frivolous one. In a scene at Peter's apartment, we see that Manhattan's coolest lawyer has taken on Peter as a client, while he deals with the fallout of Mysterio exposing his identity, and J. Jonah Jameson blaming him for Mysterio's death. However, we don't know much of anything about how this team-up actually happened. Does Peter know Matt's secret identity? Did Matt seek out Peter, or did Peter approach Matt?
This is over.
Who the hell are you?
My name is Matthew Murdock. I'm your attorney.
Additionally, this is the first we've heard from Matt since the end of the Netflix series, and we don't have a lot to go on about what he's up to now, beyond the fact that his enhanced senses are still going strong and he's still lawyering up for New Yorkers who need him. At this point, we're not even sure if the events of the Netflix series actually happened in this universe, or if this is just a soft reboot of the character in Phase 4 of the MCU. Either way, it's cool to see him. But what exactly does this mean for the MCU as a whole? Before the release of No Way Home, Kevin Feige revealed to CinemaBlend that if Matt Murdock ever made an appearance in future MCU projects, Charlie Cox would be playing him. Now, that promise has come true, but we still don't know what the future holds. With this cameo appearance being so small, it seems safe to assume that we can expect more devilish goodness on the way from Matt Murdock, and maybe some of his friends, too. 2002 called and they want their Spider-Man back. Unfortunately, they can't have him. He's ours now.
Pizza time.
Whether it's Mary Jane Watson, Gwen Stacy, or Michelle Jones, Spider-Man has always been ruled by one thing: love. During Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy, Peter's love for MJ grounds the films. No matter how many times they make up and break up, fans still root for them to succeed. The couple has a rough go of it in the third film, when Peter goes a little off the deep end, but the couple reconciles in the film's last moments. Fans are left in peace with the understanding that this couple is on the way to being wrapped up together in a nice, tidy web. But in an audacious move, No Way Home takes the step of casting doubt on the status of the original Peter's relationship with MJ. When Tobey Maguire's Peter gets asked if he has someone in his life, he says it's complicated. Aw, man. Peter goes on to say they made it work, whatever that means. It's unclear if he's looking back on problems the couple worked out long ago, or if things are still tense between them. These days, this version of Peter Parker is a fully grown adult, and fans wouldn't be blamed for hoping that he'd have his love life sorted out by now. Mary Jane and Peter aren't necessarily destined for a happy ending, but considering how much of a nostalgia fest this movie is, it would have been nice if the movie hadn't left this version of their relationship in such a complicated place. We know that Ned Leeds is a wizard when it comes to technology, but could he have actual magical abilities too? Sure, you can give anybody on the street some of Doctor Strange's hardcore sorcerer gear, but that doesn't mean just anyone could use it. If magic were as universal as, say, using Tony Stark's tech, then every Avenger would cast spells and take names. No Way Home is jam-packed with content, so it's easy to miss that Ned's affinity for creating portals isn't just the work of Strange's sling ring. We don't see Peter or MJ accidentally creating portals with Strange's gear, so it feels pretty safe to say that Ned has some natural sorcerer skills, for one reason or another. It's not like sorcery is easy after all. As it stands now, Ned's chances of being Wong's sorcerer apprentice are likely shot, given that neither of them even remembers any of this happening. However, it could still foreshadow a pretty impressive and unexpected arc for Ned in future movies. The MCU Peter's mission to cure all of the crossover villains of their evil tendencies and send them home as productive law-abiding citizens is a noble one. However, he doesn't put much thought into what will happen to them and their world after he plops them all back in their own universes. First and foremost, every villain that our trio of Peter Parkers helps comes from different points in the timeline. For Tobey Maguire's universe, we have the Green Goblin, who dies at the close of the first film, Doc Ock, who perishes in the second, and Sandman coming from the third. Then we have Andrew Garfield's foe, the Lizard, from the first The Amazing Spider-Man, and Electro wreaking havoc in the follow-up. If Peter sends each villain back to the point they were at before they appeared in the MCU, but they're unexpectedly good people now, then their timelines will be in shambles, creating countless variants. Think about it. If Green Goblin goes back to the moment before his death as a regular human cured of evil tendencies, then he probably never dies. If he never dies, Harry never picks up where he left off. If that doesn't happen, then Harry doesn't die either. At this point, the Time Variance Authority would have a field day with this case. A lot of how this whole multiverse thing works has yet to be fully hashed out in the MCU, and until it's all laid out in an easy-to-understand fashion, we're going to be left scratching our heads. Near the end of the film, Doctor Strange casts a spell that causes the entire world to forget they ever knew Peter Parker. Now, when Peter asks Strange to cast the spell when even more multiversal villains are about to emerge in his own universe, it seems like it's the same spell as the beginning, making people forget Peter's identity as Spider-Man. Instead, this time, Strange entirely erases Peter Parker from everyone in the world's memory. Not even Ned and MJ know who he is. It's tragic, but the semantics of the spell don't make a whole lot of sense. Strange's spell work is usually not perfect, but this spell seems so contradictory that it shouldn't really work. Basically, how can a spell make people forget who Peter is but remember Spider-Man when Peter and Spider-Man are the same person? Sure, Spidey wears a mask and sometimes a billion-dollar Iron Man nanotech suit and some truly creepy spider legs, but he's still Peter Parker. Fans have to seriously suspend disbelief to accept that the whole world remembers Spider-Man's existence but forgets Peter altogether. If people remember Spider-Man, then they are remembering Peter. Spider-Man is just Peter in a funny outfit. Amnesia surrounding his secret identity is one thing, because both aspects of himself still exist. People would simply forget their connection. This is a whole new ballgame, and we know so little about the components of Strange's spell that it's difficult to parse out precisely what happens and why. This is headache-inducing. Comic books are hard.
So, Scooby-Doo this crap.
Now that everyone has forgotten Peter's existence, he seemingly misses out on graduation, college admission, and everything else his future may have held. As it stands, Peter Parker doesn't exist anymore, so what exactly is his 5-year plan now? The movie teases us on Peter's plans in the form of a GED book. It looks like our nerdy superhero isn't ready to give up on his MIT dreams just yet, but without officially existing, it's unclear how he would even take something as simple as a GED. Do records of Peter still exist somewhere, and it's just the memory of him that's erased? That doesn't seem likely, because if traces of him still existed, MJ and Ned, at the very least, would notice pictures of him floating around and wonder who on earth is haunting their photos. As it stands, it seems like Peter Parker is a ghost, and ghosts don't go to college or get their GEDs. It's a pretty big bummer of a plot point to close out what, until now, was a pretty lighthearted trilogy. After the world's Peter-centric memory wipe, we watch Peter swing into action in a new shiny spandex suit that looks like it hopped right out of an 80s exercise video. It's unclear what happened to his original suit, if anything. Maybe he just has an identity crisis. To be fair, he loses everyone he's ever loved in the span of a second, so we wouldn't blame Peter for going through a good old-fashioned pre-midlife crisis. It's probably what the doctor ordered. However, we have no clue whether or not his suit even exists in this timeline. Which begs a larger question: do Peter's other suits and tech still exist in this timeline? If his gear still does exist, what exactly was the point of stowing it all away? Sure, they don't know Peter, but the Avengers are typically smart enough to know when something's up on this large of a scale. Don that crappy, super tragic suit, head to Avengers Tower, and ask for help. Better yet, why doesn't Peter go to Strange? If Peter brings up his conundrum to other heroes, they'll probably be stricken by how weird the gaps in their memory are and the fact that they don't know Spidey's identity. He even has the chance to say something when he meets Happy, but he stays quiet. What gives, Parker? Let's back up to the events of Spider-Man Homecoming, when all of this was more simple. Remember Vulture? Shady dad to Peter's fleeting love interest? A whole lot has happened since Peter bailed on his homecoming to chase down his date's villainous father, yet the post-credits scene of that movie teased Vulture's future in the MCU, a future that, so far, we haven't seen. One of the most defining things about the MCU's Vulture, aka Adrian Toomes, is that by the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, he knows Spider-Man's real identity. He knows Peter Parker is a superhero. It's kind of a big deal. If the MCU ever does bring Vulture back, how are they going to pay off Vulture's knowledge if he doesn't remember Peter Parker? Would he even remember why he's in jail? A simpler question is, how come we don't see Vulture play a part in this villain mashup to begin with? Strange's spell called forth villains of Spider-Man from alternate universes. Would it have been outside the realm of possibility for an alternate version of the Vulture or even Mysterio to show up too?
There are multiple realities, Peter. This is Earth, Dimension 616. I'm from Earth 833.
You get the point. It feels like No Way Home is at its most confusing when it tries to justify its own plot. At its worst, it feels like the whole thing is engineered to make some very specific characters show up, regardless of whether or not it makes sense. Our Spidey senses are tingling after that post-credit scene in No Way Home. Many Spider-Man fans agree that the introduction of Venom to the third Sam Raimi Spidey film was the worst part of the original trilogy. But after all these years, it might be time to reacquaint Spider-Man with Venom. And based on Eddie's appearance in the MCU's world, that might be the mashup we see when we glimpse Peter Parker again. As it turns out, Eddie leaves a little symbiote gift in Peter's universe before he's sucked back into his own. That is, after learning everything there is to know about the Avengers, the Blip, and the past decade of superhero shenanigans. So how exactly will Venom fit into this world? Who will host the dastardly beast? It could be that the series introduces an MCU version of Eddie Brock, or maybe the symbiote will end up with another villain for a little while. Either way, there's a lot of trouble brewing in the future for this new, bold Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about Spider-Man No Way Home are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.